Usually when we draw a line in the sand, there is this expectation that eventually someone is going to step across it.
Right.
Because, a boundary is really just a challenge waiting to be broken. But what if that line isn't in the sand?
Yeah, what if it's literally impossible to cross physically?
Exactly. What if that line is drawn roughly 2,000 meters underwater,
Yeah.
and stepping across it literally means your body explodes? Welcome to a very serious, special Friday follow-up dispatch.
Set in the present day, the year 3000 AD.
Right. Today we're zooming in strictly on Section 8 of the Human Alliance Archival Log. And our mission for this deep dive is focusing entirely on xenotechnological integration, or XTI, because humanity has finally figured out how to cross that line.
But doing so means leaving our humanity behind, essentially.
Right. It's a heavy topic.
It really is. And what's fascinating here is the sheer desperation driving this scientific initiative. To fully grasp Section 8, you have to look at the global board right now.
Which is grim.
Very. The war against the abyssal cephalopoda is trapped in a brutal, high-attrition stalemate. The front line, the bathypolic axis, sits right at that 2,000-meter depth mark.
Right, because humans absolutely cannot survive the 1,000 bar pressure of the alien megacity down there.
Exactly. Our Lia Prime is anchored 6 miles down in the Mariana Trench. We just get crushed.
And at the same time, the invaders cannot move above the deep ocean without remaining entirely sealed inside those heavily armored bioships. Like if they step out into our lower atmospheric pressure,
they explosively decompress.
Yeah, it's a mess. Neither side can cross this physical boundary to land a finishing blow. So since the Human Alliance can't just march an army down to the ocean floor, humanity's only path forward is to steal, reverse engineer, and quite literally merge with alien biology.
Which I should point out is not happening in some pristine corporate lab on the coast.
No, definitely not.
These are highly classified subsurface mountain facilities. They're embedded deep within the Swiss Alps and the Tibetan Massif, just far out of reach of any aquatic forces.
So the HA is hauling salvaged pieces of alien architecture all the way up to the peaks of the world to figure out how to graft it onto human biology.
Exactly.
So we have these salvage teams dragging alien technology up into the mountains, and the logs specifically talk about capturing quantum molecular silicon, or QMS.
The core building block of their tech.
Yeah, and my first thought reading this was, well, why not just plug it in? I mean, we capture enemy tech in wars all the time, reverse engineer the power source, and turn it against them.
Yeah.
Why is utilizing this QMS such a massive bottleneck?
Well, because you aren't just dealing with mechanical engineering here. You are dealing with extreme environmental physics.
Okay.
This quantum molecular silicon is grown and cultivated at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. It's fundamentally designed to exist under hydrostatic pressures exceeding $1,000 bar.
So the pressure's built in.
Right. The pressure isn't just an environment for this technology. It's an actual structural component of the material itself.
Wait, really? Are you saying the ocean pressure is literally holding the technology together?
Essentially, yes. The hydrostatic pressure acts as an external molecular anchor. So when human retrieval teams bring this salvaged biosilicon up into human mountain bases...
Where it's just standard surface-level atmospheric pressure.
Exactly. The molecular bonds of the unanchored alien silicon rapidly degrade. The material literally falls apart, turning to useless slag right in front of their eyes.
Wow.
Yeah, unless it is immediately suspended in highly pressurized liquid nitrogen containment fields, you have to artificially freeze the extreme pressure state just to keep the hardware intact.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because keeping the hardware from melting on a lab table is really only half the problem, right?
You're right, it gets worse.
The logs talk extensively about the neurovolumetric mismatch. Even if we keep the tech stable in a pressurized tank, our brains are just physically incapable of talking to it.
Yes.
The archival data notes that an abyssal brain has over 100 billion core neurons in its central ring alone.
And that's not even counting the limbs.
Right. Plus another 500 billion decentralized sensory motor neurons spread throughout its tentacles. It just seems like trying to interface with that would be, it's like trying to download the entire internet through a 1990s dial-up modem.
That is a perfect analogy.
Is this what causes the quantum synaptic shock mentioned in the sources?
It is, yeah.
How does that actually manifest physically? Like, what happens to the pilot?
Well, it's brutal. When researchers first attempted to interface a human mind directly with the abyssal QMS command networks, the human brain was flooded with trillions of sensory data points simultaneously.
Oh, man.
Because human pilots have a localized central nervous system, right? all of our processing goes through a single focal point, the human brainstem.
Right, whereas the aliens are decentralized.
Exactly. So the physical capillaries in the human brain simply cannot sustain the metabolic demand of that massive electrical surge.
The brain just overloads.
Completely. The operators suffered immediate fatal neuro-overload, resulting in massive brain hemorrhages.
So your brain essentially shorts out and violently shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
Because trying to think in 12 different directions at a depth of 6 miles?
Yeah.
That is absolutely terrifying.
The human mind simply cannot process the multi-thread consciousness required to interface with abyssal tech in its raw form. The biological firewall is absolute.
Right, so we've established that touching the raw data stream is basically a death sentence.
Yes, a very quick one.
But Section 8 exists because the HA researchers somehow bypassed this biological firewall to create the XTI pilots. They built a translator to step down the alien signal into something a human brain could actually survive.
The synthetic synaptic attenuator?
Yes, the attenuator. And the mechanism of how this device actually works is just mind-blowing.
It really is. To understand the attenuator, you first have to understand how the alien technology naturally communicates.
Right.
It doesn't use electricity running through copper wires like our tech. It uses light.
Light. That's so wild.
The biosilicon conductive threads pulse with a very specific bioluminescent frequency. Specifically, 470 nanometer blue-green optical light pulses.
Which, if I remember correctly, is the deepest penetrating wavelength of light in the ocean.
Exactly. So the alien hardware speaks this high-frequency light language. And the synthetic synaptic attenuator is a surgical cybernetic implant placed directly at the base of the human skull.
So they're physically threading this into the nervous system.
Yes. They thread microfilaments along the optic nerve and the upper spinal column. It acts as a photonic to electrochemical converter.
Wow.
It takes those overwhelming 470 nanometer light pulses, acts as a bottleneck buffer, and translates the intense alien light into manageable binary electrical signals that the human brain can safely process.
I mean, just imagine volunteering for this. You're a pilot, you walk into a surgical bay in the Tibetan Massif, knowing they're going to slice into your spinal column and fundamentally alter how your central nervous system processes information.
It takes a lot of nerve. Literally.
You are undergoing radical cybernetic brain surgery so that your nervous system can read alien bioluminescence.
But the payoff for that sacrifice is unprecedented tactical capability.
Right, because now they can actually drive the ships.
Exactly. By translating that light directly into the nervous system, these XTI pilots can now interface directly with captured bioship hulls. They aren't steering a ship with a joystick or looking at sonar screens anymore.
It's way more integrated than that.
Yeah, they are feeling the water resistance against the hull as if the ship were an extension of their own body. It grants them biological split-second reaction times.
Which is incredible, but also, I mean, if we connect this to the bigger picture.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, humanity is fundamentally altering its own evolutionary path just to match the operational speed of the enemy.
Right. We are literally carving out pieces of our own neuroanatomy and replacing them with synthetic bridges just so we can share a thought with a machine grown in the abyss.
It redefines what it means to be human in the year 3000. It's really forced militarized evolution.
Forced evolution, exactly. So, okay, we've solved the brain bottleneck. We have a human who can process bioluminescent data without suffering a fatal hemorrhage.
Step 1 complete.
But having the software is useless without the hardware, right? Section 8 outlines the creation of the Chimera-class subsurface interceptors. And honestly, Chimera is the perfect name because this is basically Frankenstein's submarine.
It really is an amalgamation. The core architecture of the Chimera class relies on a standard human titanium matrix submarine frame.
So it's still a human sub on the inside.
Right, that's the skeleton, built to withstand the immense pressures of the deep sea. But stretched over that rigid titanium skeleton is a living biosilicon outer skin.
And they harvested this skin directly from the wreckage of 100-foot alien bioships.
Yes.
The logs specifically mention peeling the biosilicon off the Karateth, which we know is an alien Vanguard ship destroyed during a previous battle. They literally take the dampening, living flesh of the enemy vessel and graft it onto our own titanium subs.
And the tactical advantage of doing that is staggering. That biosilicon skin is naturally designed to absorb and scatter active sonar pulses.
So it makes the sub invisible.
Basically, yes. It renders the Chimera virtually invisible to standard acoustic detection.
Wait, I have to stop you there. because the sources explicitly state that this biosilicon outer skin can actively self-heal its own stress fractures by pulling ambient silicates right out of the ocean water as it swims.
That is correct.
If a machine can eat minerals from the water to regenerate its own tissue, doesn't that mean it's alive? Are humans driving around inside a zombie alien corpse? Like, how do the HA engineers prevent this alien skin from just continuing to grow and consuming the titanium frame or, sealing over the pilot's hatch?
Well, that is the central terror of operating a chimera.
Oh, great.
Yeah, the skin is constantly trying to grow. The HA engineers have to embed localized necrotic pulse emitters along the seams of the hatch and the weapons bays.
What do those do?
They are essentially constantly burning the edges of the biosilicon with low-yield radiation just to keep it from swallowing the submarine whole.
That is so morbid.
The Chimera class is a partially living biohybrid organism. You are sitting inside a titanium cage wrapped in the reanimated tissue of the creature that has been hunting your species, constantly keeping it at bay.
You're fighting the ocean, the enemy, and your own ship simultaneously.
Exactly.
But the most unsettling detail of this deep dive isn't even the self-healing zombie skin.
No, it's the power source.
It's the fuel. To power these massive Chimera-class submarines and maintain their stealth capabilities, the HA engineers needed to stabilize the captured alien QMS fusion reactors, right?
Right, and these reactors are infinitely more powerful than anything humans have built. They grant our stealth submarines unprecedented underwater speed and an indefinite operational range without giving off any thermal detection.
Which is a huge win.
It is, but igniting and regulating these quantum silicon reactors requires a highly specific biological stabilizer.
And Section 8 confirms the stabilizer is Rh-null human blood plasma.
Yes.
My immediate question when reading this was, why blood? Why couldn't they use liquid nitrogen or, I don't know, a synthetic fluorocarbon coolant?
Yeah.
Why does a quantum reactor need human plasma?
Because the QMS reactors are biosynthetic. They require a biological fluid medium to transfer extreme thermal energy without triggering a localized immune rejection by the reactor itself.
So the reactor has an immune system.
Basically, yeah. The alien quantum lattice instantly rejects and degrades terrestrial synthetic fluids. However, Rh-null blood, which is often called golden blood, lacks all antigens in the Rh system.
It's a completely blank slate.
Precisely. Because it is devoid of those specific antigens, the alien QMS lattice does not register it as a foreign biological threat.
Wow.
The pristine, antigen-free nature of Rh-null plasma acts as a perfect, frictionless conduit for heat transfer. It cools the quantum core without triggering an isotopic rejection.
I mean, the profoundly dark irony here for you to consider is the cycle of this entire war. The abyssal cephalopoda are hemovores, right?
Right.
They invaded Earth, bypassed the land masses, and enslaved millions of humans into industrialized coastal processing pods, specifically to harvest human blood. It is their primary energy substrate. They came to Earth because we are their fuel source.
And now, humanity has taken that exact same rare human blood, the very thing the vampiric aliens are harvesting us for, and we are using it as the chemical catalyst to power stealth submarines right back at them.
It's poetic, in a very dark way.
The blood of the victims is quite literally fueling the engines of human resistance.
And building these Frankenstein submarines and surgically altering human brains isn't just a mechanical victory. The sources make it very clear that this comes with a terrifying physiological and psychological price tag for the pilots.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you cannot interface with an alien consciousness and a quantum field without residual bleed over.
No, you can't. An internal HA scientific memo confirms the physical toll. Operators suffering long-term exposure to these active QMS fields experience mild cellular mutation. Yeah. They develop a permanent, heightened sensitivity to that 470 nanometer blue-green light. It alters their vision permanently. Even when they are off-duty, they see the world filtered through this harsh deep-sea spectrum.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The physical mutations are just the surface level. The real danger lies in what the HA calls phantom sensory leaks.
Right.
Because your nervous system is permanently tangled with biosilicon conductive threads, the hardware is essentially talking back to your brain even when you were disconnected.
Because the biosilicon isn't just a conduit, it actually has memory. The material itself retains the structural imprints of the data that is passed through it.
So the ship remembers.
Yes. Because of this integration, XTI pilots begin to experience sudden, involuntary flashes of alien memory etched into the silicon matrix.
That sounds disorienting.
Extremely. They suffer from deep-sea hydroacoustic resonances echoing in their minds when they are lying in bed in a mountain facility miles above sea level.
They're remembering things they never lived. They experience spatial memories of existing in a hyper-pressurized megacity 6 miles deep. They feel the sensation of navigating the pitch-black abyss, not as a human in a sub, but as a massive radial entity.
It actually connects directly back to a previous topic we've discussed, Commander Myelin's famous first contact.
Oh, right, the Aleutian Trench.
Exactly. You might remember the archival logs mentioning that she recorded an alien transmitting complex emotional concepts, specifically pity and grief for humanity's fragile state.
Yes, the empathy grief pulses.
Right. Well, now these XTI pilots are reporting random echoes of those exact same empathy grief pulses.
But they are feeling them directly inside their own heads.
Yes.
I want you to imagine this for a second. You're a pilot in the middle of a combat scenario. You are 1,000 meters underwater, locked in a cold titanium can. You're tracking an enemy bioship, preparing to fire a torpedo.
High stress.
Very high stress. And suddenly, for 3 blinding seconds, you vividly remember what it feels like to have 12 tentacles. You feel the crushing, comforting weight of 1,000 atmospheres on your mantle.
It's total sensory replacement.
Yeah, and you look at your own submarine on the sonar, and you feel a profound, mournful pity for the tiny, fragile humans inside it, fighting a war they can't win.
Right.
And then you snap back to reality, wipe the sweat off your face, and pull the trigger on the creature you just empathized with.
It induces a state of chronic existential dissonance. Your mind is constantly fighting to remember which species it actually belongs to, because the empathy grief pulses aren't just data points, they are chemical emotional responses flooding the pilot's brain.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
If we step back and look at the whole picture of Section 8, we are looking at the absolute extremes the human alliance will go to prevent total extinction.
They've done the impossible, really.
Yeah, they have successfully weaponized the enemy's biology. They have captured the uncapturable, translated the untranslatable, and they're turning the deep sea into a two-way hunting ground. But they are paying for every inch of that tactical progress with their own humanity.
This raises an important question, I think, about the nature of warfare itself. In any conflict, surviving often means adapting to your enemy's tactics.
Yeah, you figure out how they fight.
You learn how they fight, and you mimic it to level the playing field. But the HA has taken this concept to a literal biological extreme. They aren't just adopting abyssal tactics. They are adopting abyssal anatomy. They are internalizing the enemy on a cellular and cognitive level.
Which leaves us with one final lingering thought for you to mull over. We talked at the beginning about that unyielding pressure line drawn 2,000 meters underwater.
The bathypelagic axis.
Right. But what about the line inside our own heads? If you keep surgically replacing the pieces of your own mind with synthetic attenuators.
And if you wrap your machines in the living, thinking, self-healing flesh of your enemy.
Powered by human blood, no less. At what point do the lines between human and abyssal blur completely?
It's hard to say.
When the war finally ends, and these surviving pilots return to the surface, will they even be human anymore? Or are we watching the violent, desperate birth of the very first iteration of a brand new species?